So yesterday I did a video lecture, part two, on sexuality, and I've received a number of questions asking me to extend the analysis there to some extent. And more generally, I've been asked to have something to say about psychoanalytic perspectives on power and politics. Got a bit into that the other day in relation to Donald Trump. In regard to sexuality, I did want to mention that one of the many sources of impotence, psychosexual impotence in men is the inhibition. I don't want to say inhibition of aggression, I want to say inhibition of what feels to that man as aggression. In other words, it may not so much be his aggression that he fears, it may be that he attaches aggressive meanings to activities that are not particularly intrinsically aggressive at all, but that he sees them as such and may see them as possibly destructively aggressive. In other words, he becomes impotent because the idea of penetrating a woman in his mind is associated with some kind of fantasy of an aggressive invasion. I well recall many years ago a patient who had his penis all confused with a cruise missile. And it was not for nothing that he had that confusion. He actually was filled with a great deal of anger and rage towards his mother. And of course that gets extended to all females. I mean, a part of him really wanted to destroy his mother, and so he feared that his penis would destroy the woman, tantamount to launching a missile. That's an extreme case, but a lot of men are unconsciously worried about hurting the woman through the act of intercourse. Sometimes hard for them to grasp the reality that the woman may actually like this and derive pleasure from intercourse, but he has the idea that she's this fragile thing that must be protected, and so he can't launch, as it were. Okay. Well, this is just a sexual expression of a problem that many men suffer from. That is a fear of their own aggression. And I must say, for some years I've wondered about the question, what are the psychological origins of the fact that sometimes quite early in our lives, some of us develop a certain tendency to identify with the underdog, while others clearly identify with the overdog. As a boy, I tended, as a good Canadian boy, of course, I was a hockey fan, and I tended to root for the team that was not expected to win. Well, of course, being in Toronto, I was a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, and they were usually the team that was not expected to win for good reasons, but I went on rooting for them anyway. but more generally, I mean, I'm a leftist. I've always rooted for the working class against their exploiters. I've always rooted for what we used to call during the Occupy days the 1%, but now it's 0.01%, the mega rich, the oligarchs. But I always rooted for the 99%. So I have tended to identify in significant ways with the underdog, and to identify with struggles of the workers, struggles of the left to fight back. I've identified with revolutionary figures. On the wall behind me, you may see a picture of former Canadian Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau embracing Fidel Castro. And in another picture, we have Che Guevara leaning forward to light Jean-Paul Sartre's cigar while Simone de Beauvoir looks on. So I've always tended to identify with the underdog, and it's always really bothered me that certain leaders are able to mobilize their aggression into the struggle up to a certain point, but then some of them have a marked tendency to choke. Like at the last minute, they withdraw from the struggle, they cave in, they surrender, they clutch defeat from the jaws of victory. I think there's quite a history of this on the left. Why? Of course, the most recent example of this I have is Bernie Sanders. I'm trying to overcome my anger at him. I was an enthusiastic supporter. And, okay, he wasn't winning. And then coronavirus hit, and he threw in the towel. Why didn't he carry on anyway to the very end of the primaries? He didn't want people forced to go out and vote during the coronavirus. That's good. Push for a mail ballot. Carry on anyway. Get to the convention with as many delegates as you can. And then bargain like hell. You know, tell Biden that if he wants your support, if he wants you to urge youth and your many followers to support him, then sign this document promising to enact certain executive orders the day you enter the White House. You make demands. You push. You have to be willing to, as it were, hold a gun to your opponent's head. But Bernie kept throwing in the towel all along. In the debates, he would refer to his good friend Joe Biden. He would say, whoever wins will support the other. I mean, you lose the struggle right there. Immediately they know that if they push you out, they're going to have your support anyway. And like a good boy, Bernie delivers his support. Now, I'm trying to back off from this anger because I listen very carefully to what Noam Chomsky has to say. And Chomsky says that, you know, Trump is the leader of a death cult, and another 4 years of Trump would just be so disastrous. We have to vote for anyone who has any chance whatsoever of blocking Trump. So Chomsky pushes the lesser of two evils philosophy. I get his argument. I get it. I have trouble seeing that Biden is the lesser of two evils, but I suppose he clearly is. Anyway, Bernie throws in the towel way too soon. There tends to be a history of people doing this on the left. So what is this about? Clearly, Bernie is a guy who identifies with the underdog, wants to support the underdog. He wants to practice the politics of love, but the underdog is weak, and the underdog, being weak, has trouble fighting. And the practitioners of the politics of love have a hard time fighting. They have a hard time deploying aggression. They don't want to be mean. Bernie has such a need to be a Mr. Nice Guy. That doesn't work when the stakes are so high. You can't afford to be Mr. Nice Guy. You have to be willing to go in for the kill, metaphorically speaking. Are you serious about the fight, or are you not serious?